The wine was wrong. Maya Torres stood frozen in the service corridor, hidden behind a velvet curtain that separated the kitchen from the private dining rooms. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she watched Vincent, the new sommelier, pour Bordeaux into a crystal decanter with the careful precision of someone who had been trained well. Too well. The liquid caught the light from the brass sconces, and Maya's stomach dropped. The color was off. Just slightly. Just enough that no one else would notice. But she noticed. The 2015 Chateau Margaux that Dominic Hayes ordered every Tuesday and Friday evening should have been garnet with ruby edges. This was darker, almost purple at its depths, with an oily sheen that clung to the crystal in a way that good Bordeaux never did. She had maybe 30 seconds before Vincent finished and carried that decanter through the frosted glass doors into the emerald room. 30 seconds to decide if she was imagining things. 30 seconds to decide if she was willing to risk her job, her reputation, everything she had built over 4 years at the Sterling Club, on an instinct she could not prove. Vincent tilted the bottle, letting the last of the wine flow into the decanter. He held it up to the light, checking for sediment, and Maya caught the smell. Faint. So faint that anyone else would have missed it entirely. But underneath the dark fruit and the oak and the earth, there was something metallic, something that reminded her of copper pennies left out in the rain, something that reminded her of her father's last glass of wine, 16 years ago. No, she would not think about that. Not now. Not when a man's life might depend on what she did in the next 20 seconds. Vincent set the decanter on the serving cart and reached for the white cloth napkin to drape over his arm. In 10 seconds, he would walk through those doors. In 15, he would pour that wine for Dominic Hayes. In 20, the billionaire would raise a glass to his lips and drink whatever poison had been carefully, deliberately added to his evening ritual. Maya moved before she could talk herself out of it. Vincent. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. He turned, one eyebrow raised. Mr. Pemberton just arrived at table 4. He specifically requested you for his service tonight. Vincent frowned. Mr. Pemberton? I don't know any Pemberton. He was very insistent. Maya forced a smile. Something about a Chilean vineyard tour you both attended. The Carmenere deal, he said, seemed important. It was a ridiculous lie, transparent and desperate. But Vincent was new, only 3 weeks on the job, and still eager to prove himself. Still worried about missing connections that could advance his career at Boston's most exclusive private club. Can you handle the Emerald Room? He asked, already moving toward the main dining area. Of course. The moment he disappeared around the corner, Maya grabbed the decanter. Her hands were shaking. She could feel the tremor in her fingers as she carried the crystal to the service sink, watching contaminated wine swirl down the drain in a dark spiral. She rinsed the decanter 3 times, her breath coming too fast, her mind racing through the implications of what she had just done. If she was wrong, she had just destroyed a $300 bottle of wine and created a scene that would get her fired. If she was right, she had just saved a man's life. And if she was right, someone at the Sterling Club was trying to commit murder. Maya pulled a fresh bottle of the 2015 Margaux from the climate-controlled cellar adjacent to the service station. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory as she worked the corkscrew with practiced hands. Wine talks to you, Maya. You just have to know how to listen. She had been listening her whole life, listening to the stories her mother told about growing up in Portugal's Douro Valley, about the way the soil and the sun and the rain spoke through every glass. Listening to her father explain why certain vineyards produce greatness, while others produce mediocrity. Listening to the silence that fell over their home after he died, when no one talked about what had really happened, and everyone pretended it was just a tragic accident. The fresh wine glowed the proper garnet as she decanted it. No purple undertones. No oily sheen. No metallic smell hiding beneath the fruit. This was right. The other wine had been wrong. Maya placed a decanter on the serving cart, smoothed her white blouse, and walked through the frosted glass doors into the Emerald Room. Dominic Hayes looked up when she entered. That was the first thing that told her tonight was different. In 4 years of working at the Sterling Club, she had served Dominic Hayes dozens of times. He never looked up. He acknowledged servers with a nod, a murmured thank you, a generous tip left on the table. But he never actually looked at the people who brought him food. Tonight, his gray eyes tracked her across the room. "You're not Vincent," he said. "No, sir. Vincent had an emergency. I'll be taking care of you this evening." She poured the wine with steady hands, watching him from the corner of her eye. He was younger than she usually thought of him, somewhere in his early 40s, with dark hair going silver at the temples and the kind of face that looked like it had forgotten how to relax. Handsome in a tired way, expensive in every detail, from the cut of his charcoal suit to the watch on his wrist that probably cost more than her annual salary. He swirled the wine, brought it to his nose, and took a small sip. "This is better than usual," he said slowly. "Cleaner." Maya's throat tightened. The cellar selected a particularly good bottle this evening. He set the glass down, but kept his eyes on her face. "What's your name?" "Maya Torres, sir." "How long have you worked here?" "Maya Torres." "For years." "And in 4 years, you've never served me directly. Always Vincent, or before him, Marcus. Why tonight?" She could lie. She should lie. Tell him some story about scheduling changes or a last-minute substitution. That would be the smart thing to do, the safe thing. But his eyes were sharp, and he was still watching her, and somewhere in her chest, the memory of her father's face was burning like an old wound torn open. "Because the wine wasn't right," she heard herself say, "and I couldn't let you drink it." The silence that followed lasted 3 heartbeats. 4. 5. Dominic Hayes set down his glass very carefully, the crystal meeting the white tablecloth without a sound. "What do you mean, wasn't right?" "I mean someone had added something to it." The words came faster now, tumbling out before she could stop them. "I don't know what exactly, but it wasn't wine. The color was off, the viscosity was wrong, and there was a metallic smell that doesn't belong in Bordeaux. I dumped it and opened a fresh bottle." "You just threw it out?" "Yes, sir." "Without telling anyone? Without calling security? Without any proof that you weren't imagining things?" Maya's chin lifted. She had come too far to back down now. "You're still alive to ask me these questions. I'd say that's proof enough." Something shifted in his expression. Not anger, though she had braced herself for anger. Something closer to recognition. Like he was seeing her for the first time, and what he saw surprised him. "I've been sick," he said quietly, "for almost 6 months. My doctors can't find anything wrong, but I feel worse every week. Headaches, nausea, heart palpitations that wake me at 3 in the morning. They've run every test imaginable. MRIs, blood work, cardiac studies. Everything comes back normal." The cold in Maya's stomach spread outward, reaching her fingertips. "How often do you eat here?" "Twice a week. Tuesday and Friday evenings." "Always the same table? Same wine? Same meal?" "Yes." His voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. "Always." "Have you ever trusted your instincts when everyone around you would have stayed silent? What would you do if you noticed something that could save a stranger's life? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to The Timeless Tale. This story is just getting started. Maya pulled out the chair across from him and sat down without asking permission. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice reminded her that servers did not sit with guests, that this breach of protocol could cost her everything. But the rules seemed very small compared to what they were discussing. "Tell me about the symptoms," she said. "When they started, how they progress." Dominic studied her face for a long moment. She could see him deciding whether to trust her, weighing the risk of confiding in a stranger against the weight of 6 months of unexplained suffering. "March," he finally said. "It started in March. Just headaches at first. I thought it was stress. I run a company with 12,000 employees. Stress comes with the territory." He picked up his wine glass, but did not drink from it. "Then the nausea started. After meals, mostly. My doctor thought it might be an ulcer, but the endoscopy was clear. The heart palpitations? Those started in May. Random, unpredictable. I'd be in a meeting, and suddenly my heart would be pounding like I'd just run a marathon. My cardiologist did every test he could think of. Stress test, echocardiogram, 24-hour monitor. Nothing. What did they tell you?" that I was working too hard, that I needed to slow down, take a vacation, learn to relax. A bitter smile crossed his face. My therapist said the same thing. She thought the symptoms might be psychosomatic, the body's way of telling me to stop. Maya thought about her father, about the months before he died when he complained of tiredness, of feeling like his body was fighting against him. The doctor had blamed overwork. The doctor had been wrong. Mr. Hayes, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Go ahead. Is there anyone who would benefit from your death? The question hung between them like smoke. Dominic set down his wine glass and leaned back in his chair, his face unreadable. I run a multi-billion-dollar company, Miss Torres. I make decisions that affect thousands of jobs. I've shut down competitors, rejected buyout offers, fired executives who thought they were untouchable. Of course, there are people who would benefit from my death. Anyone specific? Anyone with access to your routine here. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was careful, measured. My ex-wife and I divorced 3 years ago. According to our prenuptial agreement, she inherits 40% of my estate if I die within 10 years of the divorce. Where is she now? Switzerland. Lake Geneva. She took $30 million in the settlement and decided she preferred European winters to Boston ones. He paused. We haven't spoken since the divorce was finalized. Anyone else? My business partner, Thomas Reed, would gain significant control of the company if I were gone. My executive assistant, Rebecca Marsh, has been with me for 8 years and knows my schedule better than I do. My head of security, Harrison Cole, is responsible for keeping me safe. He smiled without humor. Any one of them could have access to my food before it reaches me. Maya absorbed this information, filing it away. The picture forming in her mind was not complete, but the outline was clear enough. Someone with knowledge of Dominic Hayes' routine had been systematically poisoning him. Someone patient, someone careful, someone who had almost gotten away with it. I want to help you, she said. Why? The question was direct, and it deserved a direct answer. Because I know what it looks like when someone is being poisoned slowly. I know what it looks like when doctors can't find anything wrong because they're not looking for the right thing. She swallowed against the tightness in her throat. My father died when I was 12. His business partner gave him a glass of wine at dinner one night. Wine that had been carefully prepared, carefully planned. He collapsed at the table. By the time the ambulance arrived, it was too late. Dominic's expression shifted. The businessman's mask slipped, and beneath it, she glimpsed something raw, something human. Did they catch who did it? They knew who did it. Everyone knew. But his partner had money and lawyers and connections. The investigation was slow. The evidence was circumstantial. After 2 years, the case was quietly closed. Maya's voice hardened. The man who killed my father is still alive, still free, still running the business they built together. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Help me make sure it doesn't happen again. She leaned forward. Let me help you figure out who's doing this. Let me check your food before you eat it. Let me be the eyes you need when you can't trust the people around you. Dominic was silent for a long time. Outside the frosted glass doors, Maya could hear the muffled sounds of the restaurant. Plates clinking, quiet laughter, the ordinary symphony of people enjoying expensive meals. None of them knew what was happening in this room. None of them would believe it if they were told. I have conditions, Dominic finally said. So do I. A ghost of a real smile crossed his face. Ladies first. My mother is sick. Lupus. She needs a specialist that our insurance won't cover. If you want my help, you pay for her treatment. Done. My sister had to drop out of nursing school to help care for her. I want her able to go back. Full tuition, room and board, everything. Done. And when we catch whoever is doing this, you don't go to the police quietly. You don't let them buy their way out with lawyers and delays. You burn them. You make sure everyone knows what they tried to do, so they can never hurt anyone again. Dominic studied her face. That sounds personal. It is. You want vengeance. I want justice. There's a difference. Maya held his gaze without flinching. Vengeance would be me finding whoever did this and making them suffer. Justice is making sure the system works the way it's supposed to, making sure money and power don't protect someone from consequences. Dominic nodded slowly. Agreed. All of it. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, sliding across the table. Now my conditions. Starting tomorrow, you work for me directly, not as a server. As a consultant, you accompany me to every meal, every event, anywhere food is served. You check everything before I eat it. People will talk. They'll assume things about why you suddenly have a young woman following you everywhere. Let them assume. I stopped caring about gossip a long time ago. He paused. There's more. I need you to watch the people around me. My staff, my colleagues, my friends. If someone is doing this, they're close to me, close enough to know my routine, close enough to have access. I need you to pay attention to the details I might miss. You want me to spy on your inner circle. I want you to observe them. There's a difference. Maya almost smiled. He had thrown her words back at her, and the symmetry was not lost on either of them. One more thing, Dominic said. This could be dangerous. If someone is trying to kill me, they won't hesitate to hurt anyone who gets in their way. I need you to understand what you're agreeing to. I understand. Do you? Because 3 hours ago, you were a waitress with good eye for wine. Now you're potentially putting yourself between a murderer and their target. Maya thought about her mother, fragile and fighting in their small apartment. About Elena, who had sacrificed her dreams so Maya could keep working. About the years of struggle and the weight of responsibility and the quiet, constant fear that one wrong step would bring everything crashing down. She thought about her father, who had trusted the wrong person and paid for it with his life. I've been in danger before, she said quietly. The difference is at this time, I can do something about it. Dominic Hayes looked at her for a long moment. Then he extended his hand across the table. Welcome aboard, Miss Torres. She shook his hand. His grip was firm, his palm warm against her cold fingers. Maya, she said, if we're going to do this, you should probably call me Maya. Dominic. He released her hand, but held her gaze. And Maya, for what it's worth, thank you. You could have looked the other way tonight. Most people would have. Most people don't notice what I notice. No, he agreed. They don't. It was nearly 11 when Maya finally left the Sterling Club. The city air was cold against her face as she walked to the bus stop, her mind still spinning with everything that had happened. 3 hours ago, she had been a waitress counting down the minutes until the end of her shift. Now she was something else entirely. Something she did not have a name for yet. The bus was mostly empty at this hour. Maya found a seat near the back and watched the city lights blur past the window. Her reflection stared back at her, pale and uncertain. She looked tired. She felt tired. But underneath the exhaustion, something else was stirring. Something that felt almost like purpose. Her apartment was dark when she arrived. The building was old, the hallway lights flickering in that way that management never quite got around to fixing. Maya unlocked the door quietly, not wanting to wake her mother. But Elena was waiting. Her younger sister sat at the kitchen table. Textbooks spread around her, a cold cup of coffee at her elbow. She looked up when Maya entered, her dark eyes sharp with worry. It's almost midnight. Your shift ended at 10. I got held up. Maya dropped her bag on the counter and opened the refrigerator, not because she was hungry, but because she needed something to do with her hands. How's Mom? Sleeping. She had a good day today. Ate most of her dinner. Elena closed her textbook. Maya, what's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. Sometimes the things that shape us most are the things we never talk about. Maya carried her father's death for 16 years, and it led her to this moment. If this story is resonating with you, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Maya pulled out a container of leftover rice and set it on the counter. Her hands were steadier now, but her mind was still racing. I got offered a new job tonight. A new job? At the club? No, outside the club. She turned to face her sister. Private consulting. For a client. The pay it's significant, Elena. Enough to get Mom into that specialist program. Enough to get you back into school. Elena's expression shifted from curiosity to suspicion. What kind of consulting pays that much? Food safety, quality control. It was not technically a lie. The client is wealthy and particular about what he eats. He needs someone to oversee his meals, check ingredients, that kind of thing. That sounds insane. It sounds like a lot of money. Elena stood and crossed the small kitchen, stopping directly in front of Maya. They had their mother's eyes, both of them, dark and expressive and impossible to hide from. What aren't you telling me? Maya hesitated. She could tell Elena everything. About the wine, about Dominic Hayes, about the slow poison that had been making him sick for months. But Elena worried enough already. She had sacrificed enough already. The weight of this particular truth was Maya's to carry. I'm telling you that things are going to get better, Maya said quietly. That's all you need to know right now. That's not how this works. We don't keep secrets from each other. Sometimes we have to, just for a little while, just until I figure out what I'm dealing with. Elena stared at her for a long moment. Then she sighed, the kind of sigh that said she was not happy but knew better than to push. If you're in trouble, you tell me. Promise. I promise. After Elena went to bed, Maya sat alone in the kitchen. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on the street below. She pulled out her phone and saved Dominic Hayes' number, then stared at the screen for a long time without sending a message. On the wall beside the door, there was a photograph. Maya's eyes drifted to it, as they always did when she was alone in this room. Her father smiled out at her from the frame, his arm around her 12-year-old shoulders, both of them laughing at something her mother had said just before clicking the shutter. It had been taken 3 weeks before he died. 3 weeks before everything changed. Rafael Torres had been a good man, a vineyard manager who loved his work and his family and his adopted country. He had come to America from Portugal with nothing but his knowledge and his determination, had built a small but successful career helping wealthy estate owners cultivate their vanity vineyards. His business partner, a man named Victor Caldwell, had been his closest friend, or so everyone thought. Maya closed her eyes and let the memories surface. The dinner party at the Caldwell estate, the celebration of a new contract, a new opportunity. Victor had poured the wine himself, a special bottle from his private collection. Her father had raised his glass, made a toast, taken a long sip. She remembered the way his face had changed, the confusion, then the pain, the glass slipping from his fingers and shattering on the marble floor, her mother screaming, the ambulance that took too long to arrive. She remembered the funeral, the investigation, the lawyers who picked apart every piece of evidence until nothing remained. She remembered Victor Caldwell at the graveside, his face arranged in a mass of grief, offering condolences that tasted like ash. The case was closed 18 months later. Insufficient evidence to prosecute. Victor Caldwell walked free and took control of the business her father had helped build. He was still there now, running his vineyard empire, living his comfortable life, untouched by consequences. Maya had never stopped thinking about that, never stopped carrying the weight of justice denied. And now, 16 years later, she had been given a chance to make sure it did not happen again. She looked at the photograph one more time. Then she picked up her phone and typed a message to Dominic Hayes. Got home safe. Ready to start tomorrow. Tell me where and when. His reply came 30 seconds later. Hayes Media Group headquarters. 9 a.m. Ask for me at the front desk. And Maya, thank you for everything. She saved the message and set the phone aside. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, new reasons to be afraid. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, Maya Torres felt something other than exhaustion. She felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The Hayes Media Group headquarters occupied 32 floors of a glass tower in Boston's financial district. Maya had walked past it hundreds of times on her way to other destinations, never imagining she would have any reason to enter. Now, standing on the sidewalk in front of the revolving doors, she felt distinctly out of place. The building was all sharp angles and reflective surfaces, designed to intimidate visitors before they even stepped inside. Men and women in expensive suits flowed past her, their eyes fixed on phones or distant horizons, none of them sparing her a second glance. She had dressed carefully this morning, choosing her best black pants and a navy blouse that Elena insisted made her look professional. But surrounded by tailored wool and designer handbags, she felt like a child playing dress-up. The lobby was even more intimidating. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, a security desk staffed by men who looked like they had been hired more for their size than their customer service skills. Maya approached with as much confidence as she could muster. "I'm here to see Dominic Hayes." The security guard's expression did not change. "Name, Maya Torres." He typed something into his computer, frowned, typed something else. Then his eyebrows rose slightly. "One moment, Miss Torres." He picked up a phone, spoke quietly into it, then hung up and handed her a visitor badge. 32nd floor. "Mr. Hayes will meet you at the elevator." True to the guard's word, Dominic was waiting when the elevator doors opened. He looked different today, still tired but more alert, more present. His gray suit fit him perfectly, and his dark hair was carefully combed. He looked like what he was, one of the most powerful men in the city. He also looked relieved to see her. "Thank you for coming," he said, leading her down a hallway lined with glass-walled conference rooms. "I wasn't entirely sure you would." "I said I would. People say a lot of things. Following through is rarer than you'd think." They passed through a reception area where a blonde woman sat behind a sleek desk. She looked up as they approached, her expression carefully neutral, but Maya caught something in her eyes. Curiosity, maybe, or suspicion. "Rebecca, this is Maya Torres. She'll be working with me directly going forward. Make sure she has full access to my schedule." "Of course, Mr. Hayes." Rebecca's voice was professional, but her smile did not reach her eyes. "Welcome to Hayes Media Group, Miss Torres." "Thank you." Maya followed Dominic into his office, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. The view was stunning, but her attention was caught by the details of the room itself. The desk was obsessively neat, papers aligned in perfect stacks. The bookshelves held more awards than books, and on the wall behind the desk, there was only one personal photograph, a younger Dominic shaking hands with a man Maya did not recognize, both of them smiling. "That's Thomas Reed," Dominic said, following her gaze. "My business partner. We started this company together 15 years ago. Sold our cars, maxed out our credit cards, worked 80-hour weeks for years before we turned a profit." "You trust him?" "I used to trust him with my life." Dominic sat down behind his desk and gestured for Maya to take the chair across from him. "Now I don't know who I trust. That's why I'm here." "Yes." He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. "I've had my security team prepare background files on everyone in my inner circle. Thomas, Rebecca, Harrison Cole, and a few others. I want you to review them, look for anything that seems off." Maya took the folder, but did not open it. "Before I do that, I need to understand something. Last night, you mentioned your ex-wife, the prenuptial agreement." Dominic's expression tightened. "Caroline, tell me about her." He was silent for a moment, gathering his thoughts or his defenses. "We met in college. I was a scholarship kid, working 2 jobs to pay for textbooks. She was from old money, the kind of family that has buildings named after them. We shouldn't have worked, but we did. She believed in me when no one else did." "What happened?" "Success happened." He leaned back in his chair. "The company took off. I started working longer hours, traveling more. She said I loved Hayes Media more than I loved her. Maybe she was right." He paused. The divorce was not pleasant. She wanted half of everything. Her lawyers were aggressive. In the end, we settled on $30 million and the clause you mentioned. If I die within 10 years of the divorce, she gets 40% of my estate. Why would you agree to that? Because I was tired. Because I wanted it to be over. Because I never imagined it would matter. He smiled bitterly. I was 40 years old and healthy. The idea that I might die within a decade seemed absurd. It seems less absurd now. Yes, it does. A knock at the door interrupted them. Harrison Cole entered without waiting for an invitation. He was exactly what Maya had expected from a head of security, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of watchful eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Hayes, you have a board meeting in 20 minutes, and I need to discuss the new access protocols for your visitor." His eyes landed on Maya, and she felt herself being assessed, cataloged, filed away in whatever mental database he kept. "Harrison, this is Maya Torres. She'll be accompanying me to all meals and public events going forward. So I've been told." Harrison's voice was neutral, but his expression was not. "With respect, sir, I'd like to run a full background check before she has unrestricted access to your schedule." "Already done," Dominic said. "I had Jennifer Chong run it last night." Harrison's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You used an outside investigator." "I needed objectivity." Dominic stood. "Maya, I have to handle this meeting. Harrison will show you around. Answer any questions you have. We'll reconvene for lunch." Maya watched him go, then turned to face Harrison Cole. The silence between them stretched uncomfortably. "You don't trust me," she said. "I don't trust anyone. It's my job." "Fair enough." She stood, smoothing her blouse. "Then let's start with the basics. Where does Mr. Hayes usually eat lunch?" Harrison's expression shifted slightly. Not warming, exactly, but acknowledging. She had asked a practical question, a security-minded question. It was a right move. "Follow me," he said. The tour took nearly an hour. Maya learned the layout of the building, the location of every exit, the names and positions of key staff members. She met Thomas Reed, who shook her hand too firmly and asked too many questions about her background. She met the head of catering, who seemed nervous when Harrison mentioned new food protocols. She met a dozen other people whose names blurred together, all of them watching her with varying degrees of curiosity and suspicion. By noon, she was exhausted and overwhelmed. But when Dominic returned from his meeting and asked if she was ready for lunch, she straightened her spine and nodded. "Ready," she said. They ate in his office, simple sandwiches that Maya had watched being prepared in the executive kitchen. She checked every ingredient, every condiment, every napkin before allowing anything to touch his plate. Dominic watched her work, without comment. "You're thorough," he finally said. "I have to be." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Outside the windows, the city sparkled in the midday sun. It was a beautiful view, the kind that most people would never see from this angle, this height, this position of privilege. "Can I ask you something?" Dominic set down his sandwich. "Go ahead." "Why food? Of all the things your mother could have taught you, why wine and ingredients and the way things are supposed to taste?" Maya considered the question. It was not something she had ever tried to articulate before. "My mother grew up in the Douro Valley in Portugal. Her family had been making wine for generations, not the famous labels, just small batches for the local market. But they understood that wine is more than just grapes and fermentation. It's history, it's intention, it's a conversation between the land and the person drinking it." She paused, remembering long afternoons in their tiny kitchen, her mother explaining the difference between a Tempranillo and a Touriga Nacional. When she came to America, she couldn't bring the vineyard with her, but she could bring the knowledge. "She taught me that food tells the truth even when people lie. That if you pay attention, really pay attention, you can learn things that people try to hide. That's a remarkable skill. It's just observation. Anyone can learn it, but not everyone does." Dominic leaned forward. "Maya, I've spent my entire career surrounded by people who tell me what I want to hear. People who agree with me because disagreement is risky. People who smile to my face and sharpen knives behind my back. You're not like that. How do you know? You've known me for less than 24 hours. Because you told me the truth last night. You could have said nothing. You could have served the wine and let whatever happen happen. But you didn't." Maya looked out the window. The harbor glittered below them, boats moving in slow patterns across the water. "My father trusted the wrong person once. I watched him die because someone he considered a friend decided that money was more important than a human life. I swore I would never let that happen to anyone else. Not if I could prevent it." She turned back to face him. "I don't know you, Mr. Hayes." I don't know if you're a good person or just a powerful one, but I know what it feels like to be betrayed by someone close to you. And I know that no one deserves to die slowly, surrounded by people who smile while they're killing you. The silence between them was different now. Heavier, more honest. Dominic, he said quietly. I told you to call me Dominic. Dominic, then. He smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. I think we're going to figure this out, Maya. Together. She did not know if he was right. She did not know if they could untangle the web of suspicion and danger that surrounded him. But sitting in that office, with the city spread out below them and the afternoon light warming the windows, she allowed herself to believe that it was possible, that good things could happen to good people, that justice could exist, even in a world that often seemed determined to prove otherwise, that she had finally found a purpose worth fighting for. The laboratory was cold and clinical, all white walls and stainless steel surfaces. Maya stood near the window, watching Dominic sit in a leather chair while Dr. Nathan Price drew vial after vial of blood from his arm. 3 days had passed since that first lunch in his office. 3 days of watching, waiting, checking every meal that came within 10 feet of him. 3 days of growing more certain that she had been right. The toxicology report on the wine had come back that morning. Jennifer Chong, the private investigator Dominic had hired, had delivered it personally. Maya remembered the way her hands had trembled slightly as she opened the folder, the way her breath had caught when she read the results. Arsenic, not enough to kill immediately, not enough to trigger obvious symptoms, just enough, administered consistently over months, to slowly break down a healthy man's body, to make him tired, nauseous, confused, to make his heart race and his head pound, to make him doubt his own sanity when doctor after doctor told him nothing was wrong. Someone had been murdering Dominic Hayes one dinner at a time. Dr. Price labeled the final vial and set it aside. He was an older man, silver-haired and steady-handed, with a kind of calm demeanor that came from decades of delivering difficult news. Based on the timeline you've given me and the concentration of arsenic in the wine sample, I'd estimate you've been exposed for at least 4 months, he said, possibly longer. The symptoms you described are consistent with chronic low-dose poisoning. How much damage has been done? Dominic's voice was flat, controlled. The voice of a man who had learned to hide his fear behind boardroom composure. That's what these tests will tell us. Arsenic accumulates in the body over time. Hair, nails, organ tissue. We'll know more in 48 hours. But I want to be honest with you, Mr. Hayes. If this had continued another few months, we might be having a very different conversation. Maya watched Dominic absorb this information. His face remained impassive, but she saw his hand tighten on the arm of the chair, saw the slight tremor in his jaw. What about treatment? She asked. Dr. Price turned to her. Chelation therapy. It binds to the heavy metals in the body and helps eliminate them. It's not pleasant, but it's effective. The sooner we start, the better the prognosis. Start immediately, Dominic said. Whatever it takes. After they left the laboratory, they sat in the back of Dominic's car in silence. Harrison Cole was driving, his eyes fixed on the road, but Maya knew he was listening to every word. Someone really is trying to kill me, Dominic said quietly. It was not a question. Yes. Part of me hoped you were wrong, that this was all some kind of misunderstanding. He turned to look at her. Stupid, right? Not stupid. Human. I've spent my whole life being careful, building walls, making sure I was never vulnerable to anyone. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. And somehow, I let someone get close enough to poison me twice a week for 4 months. Maya did not have words to comfort him. There were no words that could make this better. So she simply sat beside him, a silent presence in the cold leather interior, and let him feel whatever he needed to feel. That evening, Jennifer Chong spread her findings across the conference table in Dominic's private office. Maya, Dominic, and Harrison Cole sat around the table while she walked them through weeks of investigation. Vincent Mercer was hired at the Sterling Club 3 weeks before your symptoms began increasing in severity, Jennifer said. She was a sharp-featured woman in her early 40s, with a kind of direct gaze that made people uncomfortable. Before him, Marcus Webb handled your wine service exclusively. Marcus retired suddenly, citing health reasons. He now lives in Florida on a pension that exceeds his former salary by roughly triple. Someone paid him off, Harrison said. Someone paid both of them. Jennifer slid a document across the table. I've traced payments to both Mercer and Webb from the same offshore account. The money moved through 7 shell companies in 3 different countries, but I was able to follow it back to its source. Maya leaned forward. Who? That's where it gets complicated. Jennifer pulled out another folder. The shell companies are registered to various holding entities, all of which trace back to a law firm in Geneva. The firm specializes in wealth management for high-net-worth individuals. Their client list is confidential. So, we hit a wall, Dominic said. Not exactly. The law firm has a banking relationship with Credit Suisse. I have a contact there who was able to confirm that the account funding these payments is held by someone in their private wealth division. Someone with the initial CH. The silence in the room was absolute. Maya watched Dominic's face as the implications settled over him. CH Caroline Hayes. That's not proof, Harrison said carefully. Initials aren't enough to... It's her... Dominic's voice was hollow. The prenuptial agreement. 40% of my estate. If I die within 10 years. The divorce was finalized 8 years ago. She has 2 years left on the clock. Jennifer said quietly. If you die before then, she inherits approximately $2 billion. Maya thought about what Jennifer had just said. $2 billion. A number so large it stopped feeling real. The kind of money that could buy anything, including murder. I need more, Dominic said. I need proof that will hold up in court. I need to know for certain before I do anything. I'm working on it. Jennifer gathered her documents. Give me another week. I'll find the connection. After she left, Maya and Dominic sat alone in his office. The city lights glittered beyond the windows, indifferent to the human drama playing out above them. Tell me about her, Maya said. Not the facts. Tell me who she was when you loved her. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different. Softer. Younger. She was the first person who ever made me feel like I belonged somewhere. I grew up in foster care. Never knew my parents. Moved from house to house. Never staying long enough to put down roots. By the time I got to college, I had convinced myself that I didn't need anyone, that being alone was just how my life was supposed to be. He stood and walked to the window, his back to her. Caroline changed that. She saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. She believed I could be more than a scholarship kid working 2 jobs. She made me believe it too. What happened? Success happened. The company grew faster than either of us expected. Suddenly I was traveling constantly, working 100-hour weeks, making decisions that affected thousands of people. I told myself I was building something for us, for our future. But somewhere along the way, I stopped coming home. He turned to face her. She asked me once if I loved Hayes Media more than I loved her. I told her that was ridiculous, but I never actually answered the question. He paused. I think she knew. I think that's when she started planning how to leave. Do you think she planned this too? The poisoning. I don't know. The Caroline I remember was ambitious. Yes, sometimes cold. But this, he shook his head. I never imagined she was capable of this. People surprise us, Maya said quietly. Sometimes the people we think we know best are the ones hiding the most. Is that experience talking? Yes. She did not elaborate, and he did not push. That was something she was learning about Dominic Hayes. He understood the value of silence. He knew when to ask questions and when to simply wait. I should get you home, he said finally. It's late. I can take the bus. Maya. He crossed to where she sat and crouched down so their eyes were level. Someone is trying to kill me. If they find out you're the reason their plan is falling apart, they might come after you too. I'm not letting you take the bus at midnight. She wanted to argue. She had been taking care of herself for 16 years. She did not need protection. But there was something in his eyes. Not pity, not condescension. Just genuine concern for another human being. Okay, she said, but just the ride. I don't need a security detail. He smiled. We'll discuss that tomorrow. The moment this became personal, everything changed. Maya saved a stranger's life, and now her own family is in danger. Stay with me. This story takes turns you won't see coming. Subscribe to The Timeless Tale if you want to see how this ends. Harrison Cole dropped Maya at her apartment just before midnight. She climbed the stairs to the third floor, her legs heavy with exhaustion, her mind still turning over everything she had learned. Caroline Hayes, the woman Dominic had loved, the woman who had shared his bed, his dreams, his life for 7 years, the woman who was now trying to murder him for an inheritance she would not even need. How did love turn into something like that? Maya unlocked her apartment door and stepped inside. The first thing she noticed was the smell. Wine. Good wine. The kind she could not afford. The second thing she noticed was a glass. It sat on her kitchen table, empty, catching the light from the street lamp outside her window. A crystal wine glass, expensive, completely out of place in her modest apartment. Beneath the glass was a note. 3 words, handwritten in elegant script. Some things are better left unnoticed. Maya's blood went cold. She checked the apartment room by room, her heart pounding. Her mother's bedroom, empty. Her mother was sleeping peacefully, undisturbed. Elena's room, empty. Her sister's bed was still made. She must still be at her evening study group. Nothing was taken. Nothing was disturbed. But someone had been here. Someone had walked through her home, past her sleeping mother, and left a message that could not be misunderstood. They knew who she was. They knew where she lived. And they wanted her to know that she was being watched. Maya stood in her kitchen, staring at the wine glass, and made a decision. She could not tell Elena about this. Could not tell her mother. They would worry. They would want her to stop. But she could not stop. Not now. Not when she was so close to finding the truth. She picked up the glass carefully, wrapped in a paper towel, and placed it in a plastic bag. Evidence. Then she pulled out her phone and called the only person she could think of. Dominic answered on the second ring. Maya, what's wrong? Someone was in my apartment. While I was gone, they left a wine glass and a note telling me to stop noticing things. The silence on the other end was brief, but heavy. Don't touch anything else. I'm sending Harrison. He'll be there in 15 minutes. Dominic, I can handle. This isn't negotiable. His voice was firm, but not unkind. Someone just threatened you in your own home. That means the rules have changed. Please, Maya, let me help. There was that word again. Please. The word that had started everything. Okay, she said. But my mother and sister can't know. They can't be dragged into this. Understood. We'll figure out together. Harrison arrived in 12 minutes. He swept the apartment with professional efficiency, checking windows, dusting for fingerprints, photographing the note. He asked Maya questions in a low voice, careful not to wake her mother in the next room. The lock wasn't forced, he said finally. Either they had a key or they're very good at picking locks. What does that mean? It means this wasn't random. Whoever did this planned it carefully. They wanted to send a message without leaving evidence. They left the glass, which is probably clean. No prints, no DNA. They're professionals. Harrison's expression was grim. Miss Torres, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. Are you willing to continue this work, knowing that your family could be at risk? Maya thought about her mother, sleeping peacefully 10 feet away. Thought about Elena, who had already sacrificed so much. Thought about the life they had built from the wreckage of her father's death. Then she thought about Dominic, about the poison in his blood, about the woman who had once loved him planning his death from a mansion in Switzerland. Yes, she said, I'm willing. Then we need to make some changes. Security for your building. Someone watching your family when you're not here. Non-negotiable. My mother will notice. We'll be discreet. She won't know we're there. Maya wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. The threat was real now. The danger had followed her home. Okay, she said. Do what you need to do. After Harrison left, Maya sat alone in her kitchen until dawn. She did not sleep. Every creak of the old building made her flinch. Every shadow seemed to move. But underneath the fear, something else was growing. Determination. Resolve. They wanted her to be afraid. They wanted her to stop. She was not going to give them that satisfaction. 2 weeks passed in a blur of heightened security and careful investigation. Maya accompanied Dominic everywhere now. Board meetings, business dinners, charity events. She checked every plate, every glass, every piece of food that came within his reach. She watched the people around him with new eyes, looking for signs of guilt, of nervousness, of hidden agendas. Rebecca Marsh remained cold and professional, her hostility toward Maya barely concealed. Thomas Reed was friendly to the point of suspicion, always asking questions, always wanting to know more about Maya's background. Harrison Cole was a constant presence, his watchful eyes never resting. And through it all, Maya and Dominic grew closer. It happened gradually, in small moments that accumulated into something larger. Late nights in his office, reviewing Jennifer Chang's reports. Early mornings in his penthouse kitchen, where Maya taught him how to make his mother's Portuguese coffee. Conversations that started about business and wandered into territory neither of them expected. He told her about the foster homes, about the family who had almost adopted him when he was 8, until they had a biological child, and decided they did not need him anymore, about the night he had spent sleeping in his car during his first year of college because he could not afford both rent and textbooks. She told him about watching her father die, about the years of anger that followed, directed at a justice system that protected the wealthy and punished the poor, about the guilt she carried for not being able to save him, even though she had been 12 years old and helpless. "You can't blame yourself for that," Dominic said one evening. They were on the terrace of his penthouse, watching the sunset paint the harbor in shades of gold and rose. "I know. Logically, I know." Maya wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "But logic doesn't always reach the places where guilt lives." "No," he agreed. "It doesn't." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the light fade. Somewhere below them, the city hummed with life. People going about their ordinary days, unaware of the extraordinary things happening above them. "Maya," Dominic said quietly, "when this is over, when we've caught whoever is doing this, what do you want to do?" She had not thought that far ahead. For weeks, her entire focus had been on the investigation, on keeping Dominic safe, on protecting her family. The future felt like a distant country she might never visit. "I don't know," she admitted. "Go back to my life, I suppose. Find another waitressing job. Take care of my mother. Is that what you want?" The question caught her off guard. What did she want? She had spent so many years just surviving, just getting through each day, that she had forgotten how to want things for herself. "I want my mother to be healthy," she said slowly. "I want Elena to finish nursing school. I want to stop being afraid all the time." She paused. "I want to feel like I belong somewhere, like I'm not just passing through." Dominic turned to face her. The fading light caught his features, softening the sharp angles, making him look younger, more vulnerable. "You belong here," he said. "With me, if you want to." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Maya felt her heart beating faster, felt the warmth spreading through her chest. "Dominic, I'm a waitress. You're a billionaire. We come from completely different worlds." "So?" "I spent the first 18 years of my life with nothing. Money doesn't change who I am. It just changes what I can afford." He took a step closer. "Maya, you're the only person who's been honest with me in years. The only one who sees me as a person instead of a paycheck or a stepping stone. Do you know how rare that is?" She did not answer, could not answer. The air between them felt charged, electric. "I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight," he continued. "I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that maybe, when this is all over, you don't have to go back to your old life. Maybe you could build a new one." Maya looked at him, really looked, past the expensive suit and the powerful reputation, to the man underneath, the boy who had grown up unwanted, the husband who had lost his way, the target who had almost lost his life. "I'll consider it," she said quietly. He smiled, not the polished smile he used in boardrooms. Something real, something just for her. That's all I ask. The gala was 3 nights later. The Museum of Fine Arts transformed for the evening into a glittering showcase of Boston's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors. Waiters in white jackets circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Women in designer gowns and men in tailored tuxedos mingled beneath priceless paintings, their laughter echoing off vaulted ceilings. Maya felt completely out of place. The dress Dominic had sent was beautiful, deep emerald silk that hugged her curves and fell to the floor in an elegant sweep, professional but stunning, the kind of dress a woman wore when she wanted to be taken seriously. But no amount of expensive fabric could change who she was underneath. A waitress, a caretaker, a girl from Dorchester who had never been to a gala in her life. Dominic must have sensed her discomfort. He placed his hand on the small of her back, a gesture that was both supportive and proprietary. "You look beautiful," he murmured. "I look like I'm playing dress-up. You look like you belong here." He guided her through the crowd. "And that's going to make certain people very nervous." She understood what he meant. Tonight was not just a social event. It was a test, an opportunity to observe his inner circle in an unguarded environment, to watch for reactions, for tells, for the subtle signs of guilt that might reveal who was trying to kill him. Rebecca Marsh appeared almost immediately, stunning in a black gown that emphasized her pale blonde hair. Her smile was sharp as she greeted Dominic. "You look well," she said. "The new health regimen must be working." Something like that. Dominic's voice was neutral, giving nothing away. Rebecca's eyes slid to Maya. "And Miss Torres, I see you've upgraded your wardrobe. Mr. Hayes has been generous. Hasn't he?" Something flickered in Rebecca's expression. Jealousy, perhaps, or something darker. "Well, don't get too comfortable. These things never last." She walked away before Maya could respond. "She's in love with you," Maya said quietly. "So you've mentioned. It makes her dangerous. Jealousy does strange things to people." Thomas Reed intercepted them near the bar. He was jovial tonight, his cheeks flushed with champagne, his handshake overly enthusiastic. "Dominic, you old dog, the rumors are true. You found yourself a mystery woman." He winked at Maya. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I won't tell anyone your secrets." "I don't have secrets," Maya said coolly. "Everyone has secrets." Thomas's smile did not reach his eyes. "The question is how much they're worth." He drifted away, leaving an uncomfortable silence in his wake. "He knows something," Maya said, "or he wants us to think he does." Dominic accepted a glass of sparkling water from a passing waiter. Maya checked it automatically before letting him drink. Thomas has always been theatrical. It might be nothing. Or it might be everything. The evening wore on. Maya watched and listened, cataloging every interaction, every sideways glance, every whispered conversation that stopped when Dominic approached. By 10 o'clock, her feet ached and her head was spinning with information. She excused herself to the terrace, needing a moment of quiet. The night air was cool against her flushed skin. Boston glittered below her, a sea of light stretching to the harbor. She leaned against the stone balustrade and let herself breathe. "You're very good at this." Maya turned. A woman stood in the shadows near the door, half hidden by a decorative pillar. She was beautiful in an angular way, with sharp cheekbones and dark hair swept up in an elaborate style. "I'm sorry. The observation, the watching. You've been studying everyone in that room like they're exhibits in a museum." The woman stepped into the light. "I'm impressed." Something about her voice was familiar, something about the way she carried herself. "Have we met?" Maya asked, not formally. The woman smiled. "But I've heard a lot about you, Miss Torres, the waitress who saved my ex-husband's life." Maya's blood went cold. "Caroline Hayes. She was here, standing 10 feet away, wearing a designer gown, smiling like this was all perfectly normal. I see from your expression that Dominic has mentioned me." Caroline moved closer, her heels clicking against the stone. "Don't believe everything he's told you. He has a tendency to cast himself as a victim in every story." "I believe the toxicology reports." Something flickered in Caroline's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or calculation. Ah, so he's told you about that too. She tilted her head, studying Maya like a specimen under glass. And yet here you are, playing bodyguard at a charity gala. How noble. How foolish. What do you want? Direct. I like that. Caroline leaned against the balustrade, uncomfortably close. I want to offer you some advice. Woman to woman. Walk away from this. Go back to your waitressing job, your sick mother, your struggling sister. Live your small, safe life. And forget you ever met Dominic Hayes. Why would I do that? Because the alternative is much worse. Caroline's smile sharpened. Dominic destroys everything he touches. His company, his marriage, the people who care about him. He'll use you up and throw you away, just like he did with me. You're trying to kill him. The words hung in the air between them. Caroline laughed. It was a cold sound, utterly without warmth. You have no proof of that. No one does. And even if you did, do you really think it would matter? I have lawyers, resources, connections. You have nothing. I have the truth. The truth. Caroline's eyes hardened. The truth is that Dominic Hayes chose his company over his wife, over his marriage, over any chance at a real life. The truth is that he deserves everything that's coming to him. She stepped back, smoothing her gown. Consider this a warning, Miss Torres. There are forces at play here that you don't understand. Walk away while you still can. She turned and disappeared back into the gala, leaving Maya alone on the terrace with a racing heart and a new understanding of what they were dealing with. Caroline was not just trying to kill Dominic. She wanted him to suffer first. Maya found Dominic in the crowd and pulled him toward a quiet corner. His expression shifted from confusion to concern as she described the encounter. She's here? In Boston? She was just on the terrace. She warned me to walk away. That doesn't make sense. If she's behind this, why would she show herself now? Because she thinks she's untouchable. Maya kept her voice low, her eyes scanning the room. She thinks no one can prove anything. She came here to gloat, to watch you from across the room, knowing what she's doing to you. Dominic's jaw tightened. We need to tell Jennifer. This changes everything. Does it? We still don't have proof. Just a conversation that she can deny ever happened. Then we need to find proof. His eyes met hers, fierce and determined. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what it costs. We're going to end this. The call from Jennifer Chong came 3 days later. Maya was in Dominic's penthouse, reviewing security footage from the Sterling Club, when his phone rang. She watched his face as he listened, watched the color drain from his cheeks. Are you certain? He asked. Then, I understand. Bring everything to my office tomorrow morning. He hung up and sat down heavily on the couch. She found it, he said. The connection. Proof that Caroline is behind everything. Maya set aside her laptop. What kind of proof? Communications. Emails between Caroline and Vincent Mercer. Encrypted but not well enough. Instructions for dosage amounts, timing, everything. He paused. And something else. Something I didn't expect. What? Richard, Jennifer's brother. He's been helping her. Not with the poisoning, but with surveillance. He's the one who's been watching you. He broke into your apartment. Maya absorbed this information. The brother-in-law who blamed Dominic for his sister's death. The man who had disappeared after the funeral and never been heard from again. Why would he help her? Money. Hatred. Both. Dominic's voice was hollow. According to Jennifer's sources, Caroline promised him a share of the inheritance. Enough to retire comfortably. Enough to make working with the woman who destroyed his sister's marriage worthwhile. She didn't destroy his sister's marriage. You both did. He looked at her sharply. I mean, Maya continued, marriages don't end because of one person. They end because both people stop trying. Caroline made her choices. You made yours. But that doesn't give either of you the right to murder anyone. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You're right. I've spent so much time blaming myself that I forgot she had a choice too. She could have fought for us. Instead, she decided to kill me. What do we do now? We set a trap. His expression hardened. Caroline came to Boston because she thinks she's winning. She thinks I'm dying slowly, according to her plan. We're going to let her believe that. We're going to make her think she succeeded. How? By giving her exactly what she wants. A dying ex-husband, desperate and alone. She'll come closer. She'll make mistakes. And when she does, we'll be ready. The trap took 2 weeks to prepare. Stories were planted in gossip columns about Dominic Hayes' declining health. His public appearances were carefully managed to support the narrative. A gaunt look, achieved through makeup and strategic lighting. Cancel meetings. Whisper concerns about succession planning. Through it all, Maya stayed close. Closer than she had ever been before. They spent long nights in his penthouse, planning and worrying and waiting. They talked about everything. Their childhoods, their fears, the dreams they had given up on, and the ones they still secretly held. One night, when the city was dark and quiet, Dominic took her hand. "I need to tell you something," he said. "What?" "If this doesn't work, if Caroline gets away with it somehow, I want you to know that meeting you is the best thing that's happened to me in years." Maya felt her heart clench. "Don't talk like that. I'm not being morbid. I'm being honest." He squeezed her hand. "You reminded me that good people still exist. That trust is still possible. Whatever happens, I needed you to know that." She looked at him. This man who had started as a stranger, who had become an ally, who had somewhere along the way become something more. "I love you," she said. The words surprised her as much as they surprised him. She had not planned to say them, had not even realized she felt them until they were already out of her mouth. But they were true. Dominic's eyes softened. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. "I love you, too," he said. "I have for a while. I was just afraid to say it." "Why?" "Because I've lost everyone I've ever loved. My parents, whoever they were, my foster families. Jennifer, I was afraid that if I said the words out loud, I'd lose you, too." "You won't lose me." Maya moved closer, resting her forehead against his. "We're going to survive this. Together." He kissed her then. Gentle at first, then deeper. The kiss of two people who had found each other against impossible odds. Who had built something real in the middle of chaos and danger. When they finally pulled apart, the first light of dawn was creeping across the harbor. "Together," Dominic echoed. "I like the sound of that." Caroline took the bait 5 days later. She arrived at Dominic's penthouse unannounced, ostensibly to support her ex-husband during his illness. Harrison Cole let her in, following the script they had prepared. Jennifer Chong monitored the conversation from a surveillance van parked on the street below. Maya watched from the security room, her hands clenched at her sides. On the monitor, Caroline entered the living room, where Dominic sat in a wheelchair, looking pale and frail. The makeup department had outdone themselves. He looked like a man on the edge of death. "Dominic." Caroline's voice dripped with false concern. "I came as soon as I heard. You look terrible. Thank you for coming." His voice was weak, thin. "I wasn't sure you would. We may not be married anymore, but I still care about you." She sat down across from him, her posture perfect, her expression carefully arranged. "The doctors aren't optimistic?" "No. They say it's a matter of months now. Maybe weeks." "That's horrible. Absolutely horrible." But Maya could see the satisfaction in her eyes, the barely concealed triumph. "Have you thought about your affairs? Your estate? My lawyers are handling everything." "Of course. But, Dominic, we should talk about the prenuptial agreement, given the circumstances." "What about it?" "I just want to make sure everything is in order, that there are no complications when the time comes." It was too perfect, too obvious. Maya watched Caroline lean forward, her mask slipping just slightly, her greed showing through the facade of concern. "The 40%, Dominic said slowly. "That's what you came for." "I came because I was worried about you." "Did you?" Something in his voice changed, sharpened. "Or did you come to make sure your investment paid off?" Caroline's expression flickered. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the arsenic Caroline. The monthly payments to Vincent Mercer and Marcus Webb. The shell companies in Geneva. Dominic rose in the wheelchair, the pretense of weakness falling away. I'm talking about the fact that you've been trying to murder me for the past 6 months. The door opened. Harrison Cole entered, followed by 2 FBI agents. Jennifer Chong stepped in behind them, her face grim. Caroline Hayes, one of the agents, said, "You're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and wire fraud. You have the right to remain an attorney." Caroline's composure shattered. She turned to Dominic, her face twisted with rage. "You were supposed to die. It was supposed to be painless. You would never have known." "But I did know." Dominic's voice was ice. "Because someone noticed what you were doing. Someone paid attention when everyone else looked away." Caroline's eyes found the security camera in the corner, found Maya watching from somewhere beyond the lens. The waitress. She laughed, a broken sound, brought down by a waitress. How fitting. The agents led her away. Her screams echoed down the hallway until they faded into silence. Maya did not emerge in the security room until Caroline was gone, until the penthouse was quiet and still. Dominic was waiting for her in the living room. He looked exhausted but alive, more alive than she had ever seen him. "It's over," he said. "Is it?" "The FBI has everything. The emails, the financial records, her confession on tape. Her lawyers can't save her from this." Maya walked to the window. The city stretched out below them, indifferent and beautiful. Somewhere out there, her mother was sleeping. Her sister was studying. Life was going on. "What happens now?" she asked. Dominic came to stand beside her. His hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. "Now we heal," he said. "Both of us." 6 months later, Maya stood on the terrace of the penthouse, watching the sunrise paint the harbor in shades of gold and pink. The air was warm, carrying the first hints of summer. So much had changed. Caroline Hayes was in federal custody, awaiting trial. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Her lawyers had attempted various maneuvers, but nothing could change the fundamental facts. She had tried to murder her ex-husband for money, and she had failed. Vincent Mercer and Marcus Webb had both testified in exchange for reduced sentences. Richard, Jennifer's brother, had disappeared. Jennifer Chong was still looking for him, but Maya suspected he was long gone, hiding in some country without an extradition treaty. The Sterling Club had been thoroughly investigated and cleared of any institutional involvement. They had even offered Maya her job back, with a significant raise. She had declined. She had a different job now. Maya's mother was in a specialized treatment program at Massachusetts General Hospital. The new medication was working better than anyone had expected. She would never be cured, but she was stable, comfortable, happy. Elena had returned to nursing school. She would graduate next spring at the top of her class. And Maya herself had moved into the penthouse 3 months ago. It had not been an easy decision. Part of her still felt like a waitress playing dress-up, an imposter in a world she did not belong to. But Dominic had been patient. He had given her space to adjust, to find her footing, to build a new identity that encompassed both who she had been and who she was becoming. She still checked his food before every meal. Old habits died hard, and some caution would always be necessary. But the fear had faded. The constant vigilance had softened into something more like attention, more like care. The terrace door opened behind her. Dominic appeared, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Her mother's Portuguese recipe, which he had finally mastered. "You're up early," he said, handing her a cup. "Couldn't sleep. Too much thinking." "About what?" Maya looked out at the city, at the life she had built from the ashes of her father's death and her family's struggle. About how strange life is, how one moment can change everything. She turned to face him. "If I hadn't been working that night, if I hadn't noticed the wine, we never would have met. You might be dead. I'd still be serving tables and counting tips. But you were working, and you didn't notice." Dominic set down his coffee and took her hands in his. "That's the thing about moments, Maya. They don't happen by accident. They happen because someone is paying attention, because someone has the courage to act when it matters. You're giving me too much credit. I'm giving you exactly the right amount of credit." He smiled, the real smile she had come to love, the one that reached his eyes and made him look like the man he might have been if life had been kinder. "You saved my life, not just physically, in every way that matters." Maya felt tears prickling at her eyes. She had spent so many years being strong, being the one who took care of everyone else. She was still learning how to let someone take care of her. "I love you," she said. It was easier now. Natural. "I love you too." Dominic pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. "And I have something to ask you." Her heart skipped. "What?" He released her and reached into his pocket. When he opened his hand, a ring sat in his palm. Simple, elegant, a single diamond catching the morning light. "Marry me," he said. "Not because I'm grateful, though I am. Not because you saved my life, though you did. Marry me because I can't imagine facing another day without you. Because you're the best person I've ever known. Because loving you has made me want to be better." Maya looked at the ring, looked at the man holding it, thought about the journey that had brought them here, from a restaurant service corridor to this terrace overlooking the city. "Yes," she said. The word was simple. The meaning was anything but. Dominic slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. He had always paid attention to the details. They stood together as the sun rose higher, painting the world in colors of hope and possibility. Somewhere below, the city was waking up. People were starting their days, living their lives, facing their own small moments of courage and fear. Maya thought about her father, about the injustice of his death and the anger that had defined her for so many years. She had wanted vengeance once, had wanted to make someone pay for what had been taken from her. But standing here, with Dominic's arms around her and a ring on her finger, she understood something she had not understood before. Justice was not about punishment. It was about balance. It was about making sure that wrongs were righted, that the guilty faced consequences, that the innocent were protected. She had found justice for Dominic, had helped bring down the woman who tried to destroy him. But more than that, she had found peace, found love, found a place where she belonged. "What are you thinking about?" Dominic asked. "My father, he would have liked you." "Yeah." He believed in loyalty, in doing the right thing even when it was hard. He would have respected you for fighting back, for not giving up. Dominic was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I think he would have been proud of you, the woman you become, the life you built." Maya smiled through her tears. "I think so, too. Sometimes the smallest decisions change everything. A waitress who noticed the wrong color in a wine glass. A billionaire who finally found someone worth trusting. Thank you for staying with Maya and Dominic until the end. If this story moved you, leave a comment and let me know what moment stayed with you. And if you have not yet, subscribe to The Timeless Tale. More stories like this are waiting. The wedding was small, intimate, held on the terrace where they had watched so many sunrises together. Elena stood as Maya's maid of honor, crying happy tears throughout the ceremony. Rosa Torres sat in the front row, looking healthier than she had in years, beaming at her eldest daughter. Harrison Cole served as Dominic's best man. He had become more than a security chief over the past year. He had become a friend. Jennifer Chong was there, along with a few people in Dominic's life who had proven themselves trustworthy. The guest list was short, but that was how they wanted it. After the ceremony, after the champagne and the dancing and the congratulations, Maya and Dominic stood alone on the terrace. The city sparkled below them, a million lights reflecting off the harbor. "Mrs. Hayes," Dominic said, testing the words. "How does that sound?" "Strange. Good strange." Maya leaned into him. "Maya Torres Hayes. I want to keep my father's name too." "Of course. He's part of who you are." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the night settle over the city. "You know what I keep thinking about?" Maya said, finally. "What?" "How many times I almost didn't act. How many moments there were when I could have looked away, stayed quiet, protected myself, and how different everything would be if I had. But you didn't." "No, I didn't." She turned to face him. My grandmother used to say that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and acting anyway. I was terrified that night at the Sterling Club. Terrified when I dumped that wine. Terrified when I told you the truth. And now I'm grateful for all of it, even the fear. She smiled, because the fear led me to you. Dominic kissed her forehead gently. And the rest of our lives? We live them together, paying attention, being brave, making sure that good people get the chances they deserve. He pulled her closer, and they watched the stars appear one by one over the harbor. Somewhere out there, other stories were beginning, other moments of courage waiting to happen, other waitresses noticing things that did not seem right, other strangers deciding to help each other against impossible odds. The world was full of danger and darkness, but it was also full of light, full of people who paid attention, full of love that grew in unexpected places. Maya Torres Hayes had learned that lesson the hard way, and she would spend the rest of her life proving it true